My background, let's see. I've been painting for a long, long time. During university, I started to take it more seriously. Started off in journalism. Took a great painting class with Carol Wainio, who pretty much just told me, like, what the hell are you doing in journalism? You're a painter, which was great, but she also understood, me not just being willing to flip from journalism over to painting. So I did a double major in communication and in fine art, and focused in painting. I had this one terrible art teacher who was like, you're great, but you can't make a living being an artist. And maybe that's always stuck with me, but because of that, I was like, okay, I should be a journalist. I love to write, I love playing with words. But I think once I got to university and had certain people tell me, like, you're pretty good, kid, it made me sort of accept that, it's okay to let that at the very least, have more importance. But yeah, so that was sort of when I made that separation and was like, forget everything else. At the very least, art is going to be a good chunk of my life. A little bit of everything. Assisting curators, assisting event planners, an extra pair of hands, essentially. We were discussing, I worked a lot in advertising as a 9-to-5, which is great, working with text, the slogan stuff. But yeah, that's sort of, I've always worked with museums and galleries, and that's sort of always been my way of like making sure I have a 9-to-5 paycheck. And that's always been something I think that's been really important to me. Especially in New York, seeing these guys that have MFAs and have rich collector friends, but they still can't feed their kids, I've always wanted to make sure that, even if I can't have a solo show at, MoMA, I want to be the guy that decides who gets one, so yeah, the gallery and museum world has always been important, and it's great. I have a huge appreciation for art. That's why I'm studying contemporary art history in the fall, because I think, as much as studios are great, I've got a studio here. An MFA is really, they give you a studio and they give you crits. I can do that on my own. Contemporary art history pulls you right into having to back it up and discuss it. I think, I do some work with collage and some like media figures, so maybe pulling from that. I've had people before compare the text work to headlines. They've said that, that reminds them of, headlines. But no, I do think of them as separate, mostly because now I feel like the communication side of me is I've kind of crumbled it up and thrown it away, in all honesty. But it's part of who I am, and so that you can't really separate the two, but I have no intentions on, I say that, but I work at an ad agency. So then again, maybe I'm being a bit hypocritical. If I work at an ad agency and I have a degree in communications, clearly it's still there. When I've been doing text-based work, because I'm around slogans all day. So especially when a lot of my text-based stuff is, things that I want to belt someone in the stomach with and make them kind of stand back and think. Working at an ad agency is great for that, because all we do all day is come up with a way to phrase something, or I appreciate my degree in communication. It's great, and it absolutely, helps me understand the world that we're in right now. It gives you a perspective, especially when that's such a focus of the world right now. You look at everything that's happened with Rupert Murdoch in the last little while, and you sort of like, it's nice to be able to look at that and be like, wow, okay, that tower is kind of crumbling away. But the communication side of me is not as important as the art side, put it that way. At the moment, as you guys walked in on, again, sort of, text has been a big sort of focus lately. I've been fighting it and kind of losing the boxing match. I think it's one of those things where you get in, again, we were discussing sort of tunnel vision, and I just sort of thought, am I closing myself in, am I boxing myself in, and sort of realizing that, as we were discussing, I got, a list of painting titles here, and it's so clearly language and words are really important to me. And it just sort of hit me today, like, why am I fighting so hard to remove that part of my work? Maybe I just need to make sure that I'm doing it justice. So again, I think I'm sort of as of today, pulling words back into it, but pairing it again with a lot of the more abstract stuff I've been working on, which is working a lot more with spray paint, which I didn't do before. It's funny just doing, you came into the studio halfway through. I don't know if you guys can see this, but, it was so nice to be able to come up with the phrase, oh no, and that can be pulled 1,000 different ways. Oh no, what's this, take it however you want. But it was great to be able to whereas if I do that, like I have with a lot of these other guys, like, take it like something like this, I would do the first coat, and then I'd do another coat, and then I'd do another coat, and I'd do another coat to make sure, and that works on different levels, right? Because maybe doing several coats is part of the process. I was thinking about, as I was working on that one, like doing the 10th coat of white paint on here, and it's kind of like penance, and guilt and similar sort of feelings are a big theme of my work, and especially repetition. So maybe that's part of it. But now that it's changing this other direction, it's nice to be able to just say what I want to say, move on to the next. Yeah, I have a funny relationship with Toronto just because going to high school in Barrie, it was always the big city, and I think a lot of the people from my high school kind of got scooped up into that, and were like, oh, well, that's the nearest big city, so let's go there. I never really gave a shit about Toronto, and I still don't, in all honesty. Toronto, for me, was just to get a degree. A big part of it was just, school. The University of Toronto is, one of the best art history programs in the country. I was very lucky to get into it, like, last minute. I traveled for a while, as I told you, and so I got back from Africa and the Middle East and was like, what next? Could go back to New York, but if I can get school for 1/10 of the price and at a reputable university, let's do that. And we'll see what happens too. I think some of my friends sort of think that it's a guaranteed, like, I'm in Toronto now, and he'll be in Toronto for the next couple of years, but I might also hate my master's, and I might be like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, I don't need this piece of paper. I'm itching for New York. I think about it every day, and I'm sure I'll go back there at some point. I mean, again, I'm a baby. I'm 23, and it's tough to kind of keep that perspective sometimes, but the art scene in New York is, like, I'm already grinning. It's really exciting because it is like a whirlwind. It's very fast and it's fun, but it's huge and it's tough and it's a bitch, and it'll be really tough to you, and you've really got to, I know guys that are there that bust their ass and they're getting nowhere. And that applies anywhere, but I think especially in a city that wide, there's over 8 million people there. You think out of 8 million people in New York, how many of them are artists? Well, probably at least 1 out of 8. So that's 1 million artists, it's just the extra level of competitiveness, which is good though, because it forces you to step your game up and to sort of work harder at it. But again, it's tougher to break in. It's more expensive. I couldn't have the studio facilities that I have here in New York. But again, there's always that, you can be the biggest fish in Toronto and maybe still be a nobody on the global art scale. If you're the biggest fish in New York, then you're golden. Just wish me good energy, and I'll do the same for you. I'm a pretty driven guy, and I think that I'll keep doing things as I have been, and just keep setting goals for myself. But I wouldn't ask anything of you. Just some good vibes, and I'll send them your way too. Karma. Just keep the karma circle going, and we'll all be all right. Ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make it I something you, like I, and then leave it open to interpretation. I'm just gonna leave it I you. You and me. I and you. That's awesome the way it is.